Welcome to Dweller of the Dark. We are wicked wizards demanding the resurrection of the yellowed and blackened bones of forgotten masters of horror, science fiction, fantasy, and beyond. Subscribe, comment, like, or I'll send the vampire Helen to rip your heart out. Writers, poets, songwriters, reach out to us if you want to be part of our growing pile of bones. Writing, ghostwriting services on Upwork and Fiverr. We've had a 98% successful completion rate for projects. Contact links below. Children of Horrorgram, Legion of Ghouls. We proudly present James Hogg's, George Dobson's Expedition to Hell. Devilishly devoted to horror. May your souls always be.
George Dobson's Expedition to Hell by James Hogg.
There is no phenomenon in nature less understood, and about which greater nonsense is written than dreaming. It is a strange thing. For my part, I do not understand it, nor have I any desire to do so. And I firmly believe that no philosopher that ever wrote knows a particle more about it than I do, however elaborate and subtle the theories he may advance concerning it. He knows not even what sleep is, nor can he define its nature so as to enable any common mind to comprehend him. And how then can he define that ethereal part of it wherein the soul holds intercourse with the external world? How, in that state of abstraction, some ideas force themselves upon us in spite of all our efforts to get rid of them, while others, which we have resolved to bear about with us by night as well as by day, refuse us their fellowship, even at periods when we most require their aid. No. The philosopher knows nothing about either, and if he says he does, I entreat you not to believe him. He does not know what mind is, even his own mind, to which one would think he has the most direct access. Far less can he estimate the operations and powers of that of any other intelligent being. He does not even know, with all his subtlety, whether it be a power distinct from his body or essentially the same, and only incidentally and temporarily endowed with different qualities. He sets himself to discover at what period of his existence the union was established. He is baffled, for consciousness refuses the intelligence, declaring that she cannot carry him far enough back to ascertain it. He tries to discover the precise moment when it is dissolved, but on this consciousness is altogether silent, and all is darkness and mystery. For the origin, the manner of continuance, and the time and mode of breaking up of the union between soul and body are in reality undiscoverable by our natural faculties, are not patent beyond the possibility of mistake. But whosoever can read his Bible and solve a dream can do either without being subjected to any material error. It is on this ground that I like to contemplate not the theory of dreams, but the dreams themselves, because they prove to the unlettered man, in a very forcible manner, a distinct existence of the soul and its lively and rapid intelligence with external nature, as well as with a world of spirits with which it has no acquaintance, when the body is lying dormant, and the same to the soul, as if sleeping in death. I account nothing of any dream that relates to the actions of the day. The person is not sound asleep who dreams about these things, There is no division between matter and mind, but they are mingled together in a sort of chaos, what a farmer would call compost, fermenting and disturbing one another. I find that in all dreams of that kind, men of every profession have dreams peculiar to their own occupations, and in the country, at least, their import is generally understood. Every man's body is a barometer. A thing made up of the elements must be affected by their various changes and convulsions, and so the body assuredly is. When I was a shepherd, and all the comforts of my life depended so much on good or bad weather, the first thing I did every morning was strictly to overhaul the dreams of the night, and I found that I could calculate better from them than from the appearance and changes of the sky. I know a keen sportsman who pretends that his dreams never deceive him. If he dream of angling or pursuing salmon in deep waters, he is sure of rain. But if fishing on dry ground or in waters so low that the fish cannot get from him, it forebodes drought. Hunting or shooting hares is snow and moorfowl, wind, and etc. But the most extraordinary professional dream on record is, without all doubt, that well-known one of George Dobson, coach driver in Edinburgh, which I shall here relate. For though it did not happen in the shepherd's cot, it has often been recited there. George was part proprietor and driver of a hackney coach in Edinburgh when such vehicles were scarce, and one day a gentleman whom he knew came to him and said, "George, you must drive me and my son here out to a certain place that he named, somewhere in the vicinity of Edinburgh." "Sir," said George, "I never heard tell of such a place, and I cannot drive you to it unless you give me very particular directions." "It is false," returned the gentleman. "There is no man in Scotland who knows the road to that place better than you do. You have never driven on any other road all your life, and I insist on your taking us." "Very well, sir," said George. "I'll drive you to hell if you have a mind. Only you are to direct me on the road." "Mount and drive on then," said the other, "and no fear of the road." George did so, and never in his life did he see his horses go at such a noble rate. They snorted, they pranced, and they flew on. And as the whole road appeared to lie downhill, he deemed that he should soon come to his journey's end. Still he drove on at the same rate, far, far downhill, and so fine an open road he never traveled, till by degrees it grew so dark that he could not see to drive any farther. He called to the gentleman, inquiring what he should do, who answered that this was the place they were bound to, so he might draw up, dismiss them, and return. He did so, alighted from the dickey, wondered at his foaming horses, and forthwith opened the coach door, held the rim of his hat with the one hand, and with the other demanded his fare. "You have driven us in fine style, George," said the elder gentleman, "and deserve to be remembered. But it is needless for us to settle just now, as you must meet us here again tomorrow, precisely at 12 o'clock. "Very well, sir," said George. "There is likewise an old account, you know, and some toll money, which indeed there was. It shall be all settled tomorrow, George, and moreover, I fear there will be some toll money today. I perceived no tolls today, Your Honor, said George. But I perceived one, and not very far back neither, which I suspect you will have difficulty in repassing without a regular ticket. What a pity! I have no change on me. I never saw it otherwise with Your Honor, said George jocularly. What a pity it is you should always suffer yourself to run short of change. I will give you that which is as good, George, said the gentleman, and he gave him a ticket written with red ink, which the honest coachman could not read. He, however, put it into his sleeve and inquired of his employer where that same toll was which he had not observed, and how it was that he did not ask toll from him as he came through. The gentleman replied by informing George that there was no road out of that domain, and that whoever entered it must either remain in it or return by the same path. So they never asked any toll till the person's return, when they were at times highly capricious, but that the ticket he had given him would answer his turn. And he then asked George if he did not perceive a gate with a number of men in black standing about it. Ho, ho, is yon the spot? Says George. Then I assure your honor, yon is no toll gate, but a private entrance into our great man's mansion. For do not I know 2 or 3 of the persons yonder to be gentlemen of the law, whom I have driven often and often, and as good fellows they are too, as any I know. Men who never let themselves run short of change. Good day. 12 o'clock tomorrow? Yes, 12 o'clock, noon precisely. And with that, George's employer vanished in the gloom and left him to wind his way out of that dreary labyrinth the best way he could. He found it no easy matter, for his lamps were not lighted, and he could not see an L before him. He could not even perceive his horse's ears, and what was worse, there was a rushing sound, like that of a town on fire, all around him, that stunned his senses, so that he could not tell whether his horses were moving or standing still. George was in the greatest distress imaginable, and was glad when he perceived the gate before him, with his 2 identical friends, men of the law, still standing. George drove boldly up, accosted them by their names, and asked what they were doing there. They made him no answer, but pointed to the gate and the keeper. George was terrified to look at this latter personage, who now came up and seized his horses by the reins, refusing to let him pass. In order to introduce himself in some degree to this austere toll man, George asked him in a jocular manner how he came to employ his 2 eminent friends as assistant gatekeepers. Because they are among the last comers, replied the ruffian churlishly. You will be an assistant here tomorrow. The devil I will, sir. Yes, the devil you will, sir. I'll be damned if I do then, that I will. Yes, you'll be damned if you do, that you will. Let my horses go in the meantime then, sir, that I may proceed on my journey. Nay, nay, dare you say nay to me, sir? My name is George Dobson, of the Pleasance, Edinburgh, coach driver and coach proprietor, too. And no man shall say nay to me. As long as I can pay my way, I have His Majesty's license. And I'll go and come as I choose. And that I will. Let go my horses there, and tell me what is your demand. Well then, I'll let your horses go, said the keeper, but I'll keep yourself for a pledge. And with that, he let go the horses and seized Honest George by the throat, who struggled in vain to disengage himself and swore and threatened, according to his own confession, most bloodily. His horses flew off like the wind, so swift that the coach seemed flying in the air and scarcely bounding on the earth once in a quarter of a mile. George was in furious wrath, for he saw that his grand coach and harness would all be broken to pieces, and his gallant pair of horses maimed or destroyed. And how was his family's bread now to be won? He struggled, threatened, and prayed in vain. The intolerable tollman was deaf to all remonstrances. He once more appealed to his two genteel acquaintances of the law, reminding them how he had of late driven them to Roslyn on a Sunday, along with two ladies who he supposed were their sisters from their familiarity, when not another coachman in town would engage with them. But the gentlemen, very ungenerously, only shook their heads and pointed to the gate. George's circumstances now became desperate, and again he asked the hideous tollman what right he had to detain him and what were his charges. What right have I to detain you, sir? Say you? Who are you that makes such a demand here? Do you know where you are, sir? No, faith, I do not, returned George. I wish I did, but I shall know, and make you repent your insolence too. My name, I told you, is George Dobson, licensed coach hirer in Pleasance, Edinburgh. And to get full redress of you for this unlawful interruption, I only desire to know where I am. Then, sir, if it can give you so much satisfaction to know where you are, said the keeper with a malicious grin, you shall know, and you may take instruments by the hands of your two friends there, instituting a legal prosecution. Your redress, you may be assured, will be most ample when I inform you that you are in hell, and out at this gate you pass no more. This was rather a damper to George, and he began to perceive that nothing would be gained in such a place by the strong hand. So he addressed the inexorable tollman, whom he now dreaded more than ever, in the following terms. But I must go home at all events, you know, sir, to unyoke my two horses, and put them up, and to inform Christy Holliday, my wife, of my engagement. And bless me, I never recollected till this moment that I am engaged to be back here tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And see, here is a free ticket for my passage this way. The keeper took the ticket with one hand, but still held George with the other. Ho, ho, were you in with our honorable friend, Mr. R- of L-Y, said he. He has been on our books for a long while. However, this will do, only you must put your name to it likewise. And the engagement is this. You, by this instrument, engage your soul that you will return here by tomorrow at noon. Catch me there, Billy, says George. I'll engage no such thing, depend on it, that I will not.
Then remain where you are,
said the keeper.
for there is no other alternative. We like best for people to come here in their own way, in the way of their business.
And with that, he flung George backward, heels over head, downhill, and closed the gate. George, finding all remonstrance vain, and being desirous once more to see the open day and breathe the fresh air, and likewise to see Christy Halliday, his wife, and set his house and stable in some order, came up again, and in utter desperation signed the bond, and was suffered to depart. He then bounded away on the track of his horses with more than ordinary swiftness in hopes to overtake them, and always now and then uttered a loud "woo!" in hopes they might hear and obey, though he could not come in sight of them. But George's grief was but beginning, for at a well-known and dangerous spot where there was a tan yard on the one hand and a quarry on the other, he came to his gallant steeds overturned, the coach smashed to pieces, Doughty with 2 of her legs broken, and Duncan dead. This was more than the worthy coachman could bear, and many degrees worse than being in hell. There his pride and manly spirit bore him up against the worst of treatment. But here his heart entirely failed him, and he laid himself down with his face on his 2 hands and wept bitterly, bewailing in the most deplorable terms his 2 gallant horses, Doughty and Duncan. While lying in this inconsolable state, someone took hold of his shoulder and shook it, and a well-known voice said to him,
"Geordie, what is the matter with ye? Geordie!"
George was provoked beyond measure at the insolence of the question, for he knew the voice to be that of Christy Halliday, his wife.
"I think you need not ask that, seeing what you see,"
said George. "Oh, my poor Doughty, where are your jinkings on pronsons now, your moopings on your wincings? I'll ne'er be a proud man again, bereaved, oh, my bonny pair."
"Get up, George. Get up and bestir yourself,"
said Christy Halliday, his wife.
"You are wanted directly to bring in the Lord President to the Parliament House. It is a great storm, and he must be there by 9 o'clock. Get up, rouse yourself, and make ready. His servant is waiting for you." "Woman, you are demented,"
cried George.
"How can I go and bring in the Lord President when my coach is broken in pieces? My poor Doughty lying with 2 her legs broken, and Duncan dead. And moreover, I have a previous engagement, for I am obliged to be in hell before 12 o'clock.
Christy Halliday now laughed outright, and continued long in a fit of laughter. But George never moved his head from the pillow, but lay and groaned. For, in fact, he was all this while lying snug in his bed, while the tempest without was roaring with great violence, and which circumstance may perhaps account for the rushing and deafening sound which astounded him so much in hell. But so deeply was he impressed with the idea of the reality of his dream that he would do nothing but lie and moan, persisting and believing in the truth of all he had seen. His wife now went and informed her neighbors of her husband's plight, and of his singular engagement with Mr. R- of L-Y at 12 o'clock. She persuaded one friend to harness the horses and go for the Lord President, but all the rest laughed immoderately at poor Coachey's predicament. It was, however, no laughing to him. He never raised his head, and his wife, becoming at last uneasy about the frenzied state of his mind, made him repeat every circumstance of his adventure to her, for he would never believe or admit that it was a dream, which he did in the terms above narrated, and she perceived or dreaded that he was becoming somewhat feverish. She went out and told Dr. Wood of her husband's malady and of his solemn engagement to be in hell at 12 o'clock.
He wanna keep it, dearie. He wanna keep that engagement at no rate,
said Dr. Wood.
Set back the clock an hour or two to drive him past the time, and I'll call in the course of my rounds. Are you sure he has not been drinking, Hogg?
She assured him he had not.
Will, you maun tell him that he maun keep that engagement at no rate. Set back the clock, and I'll come and see him. It is a frenzy that mauna be trifled with. You mauna laugh at it, dearie. Mauna laugh at it. Maybe a nervous fever. What kins?
The doctor and Christie left the house together, and as their road lay the same way for a space, she fell a-telling him of the two young lawyers whom George saw standing at the gate of hell, and whom the porter had described as two of the last comers. When the doctor heard this, he stayed his hurried, stooping pace in one moment, turned full round on the woman, and fixing his eyes on her that gleamed with a deep, unstable luster, he said,
"What's that ye were saying, dearie? What's that ye were saying? Repeat it again to me, every word."
She did so, on which the doctor held up his hands as if palsied with astonishment, and uttered some fervent ejaculations.
"I'll go with you straight," said he, "before I visit another patient. This is wonderful. It is terrible. The young gentlemen are both at rest, both lying corpses at this time. Fine young men. I attended them both. Died of the same exterminating disease. Oh, this is wonderful. This is wonderful."
The doctor kept Christie half running all the way down the High Street and St. Mary's Wynd. At such a pace did he walk, never lifting his eyes from the pavement, but always exclaiming now and then,
"It is wonderful, most wonderful."
At length, prompted by woman's natural curiosity, Christie inquired at the doctor if he knew anything of their friend Mr. R- of L-Y. But he shook his head and replied, Nah, dearie. Kin naething about him. He and his son are both in London. Kin naething about him. But the thither is awful. It is perfectly awful." When Dr. Wood reached his patient, he found him very low, but only a little feverish, so he made all haste to wash his head with vinegar and cold water, and then he covered the crown with a treacle plaster, and made the same application to the soles of his feet, awaiting the issue. George revived a little when the doctor tried to cheer him up by joking him about his dream, but on mention of that, he groaned and shook his head.
"So, you all convinced, dearie, that it is nae dream?"
said the doctor.
"Dear sir, how could it be a dream?"
said the patient.
"I was there in person with Mr. R- and his son, and see, here are the marks of the porter's fingers on my throat."
Dr. Wood looked and distinctly saw 2 or 3 red spots on one side of his throat, which confounded him not a little.
"I assure you, sir,"
continued George,
"it was no dream, which I know to my sad experience. I have lost my coach and horses, and what more have I? Signed the bond with my own hand,
and in person entered into the most solemn and terrible engagement. But ye all know to keep it, I tell ye, said Dr. Wood. Ye are know to keep it at no rate. It is a sin to enter into a compact with the deal, but it is a far greater aim to keep it. Say, let Mr. R dash and his son bide where they are yonder, for ye sanna stir a foot to bring them out the day. Oh, doctor, groaned the poor fellow. This is not a thing to be made a jest o'. I feel that it is an engagement that I cannot break. Go I must, and that very shortly. Yes, go I must, and go I will, although I should borrow David Barclay's pad. With that he turned his face towards the wall, groaned deeply, and fell into a lethargy, while Dr. Wood caused them to let him alone, thinking if he would sleep out the appointed time, which was at hand, he would be safe. But all the time he kept feeling his pulse, and by degrees showed symptoms of uneasiness. His wife ran for a clergyman of famed abilities to pray and converse with her husband, in hopes by that means to bring him to his senses. But after his arrival, George never spoke more, save calling to his horses, as if encouraging them to run with great speed, and thus in imagination driving at full career to keep his appointment. He went off in a paroxysm after a terrible struggle, precisely within a few minutes of 12 o'clock. A circumstance not known at the time of George's death made this singular professional dream the more remarkable and unique in all its parts. It was a terrible storm on the night of the dream, as has been already mentioned, and during the time of the hurricane. London smack went down off Weymouth about 3 in the morning. Among the sufferers were the Honorable Mr. R- of L-Y and his son. George could not know aught of this at break of day, for it was not known in Scotland till the day of his interment, and as little knew he of the deaths of the 2 young lawyers who both died of the smallpox the evening before.
Thank you for listening. Have a great night.